Alright, we're back, episode 2. My bad, I couldn't keep you up.
What?
I just jump right in, just get in there. Gentleman's Guidebook. Today I'm very fortunate to have one of my close friends, a kindred spirit, Jaybird, aka Jordan Sterling. He actually started the Gentleman's Guidebook with me. We started this as a blog, just to showcase our work.
Yeah.
It's good, man. It was good. I had a lot of traction. I think that it kind of fell off when obviously the pandemic came into play, but I've always thought you're an interesting dude. It's very difficult for people, for me. Like I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But to have someone like within my inner circle, it's like there's not many dudes I keep in my inner circle. This guy from the beginning.
Moody in the building.
I don't know if it was if it was just like we just clicked instantly and started working together, and I'll always consider you a brother, man, and more so than a friend, man. I consider you like family, man.
Very happy to be here. Very excited to be here. More excited to catch up with you than any of this for any of you.
We haven't seen each other in it's been about 4 years.
No.
Yeah, man. I haven't seen you since we left Boston Pizza.
What?
Yeah, man.
We've had like a beverage since then.
No, because you moved to Hamilton.
Yeah.
And then you came back a little while. So you lived here for over.
Been back for 3 years now.
Yeah. And like we haven't really seen each other. I mean, I haven't really seen much people from Boston, but for you, it's a little more. It hits different because you're like kinfolk. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. I brought you here today because you're a very insightful dude, like I said before, and your conversation has always been profound to me and keeps me thinking. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me keep this going and give the audience, the listeners out there, the viewers, a little bit of a food for thought. You know?
You're gassing me up, man. I feel like I have
hey, man.
standards to hit now.
This guy is, I don't know if anyone's ever been to a poetry slam before. I've never been able to see his poetry slams up close and personal. Usually, when I was bartending, excuses are excuses. I probably should take the day off and just came, but
It's all good, man.
I've seen all of his readings that he's posted on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Also, I've actually went to your website and I've read a lot of your work. I've read all your work, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Really, really good, man. And you're actually one of your blog posts is one of the ones that gained the most traction on the website, itself. So, man, like I said, just great to have you here. Great to connect with you.
Very excited to be here. Also, like, let's just take a second, give this guy some credit. That's why he's not, It was a good time. We should get back on the writing portion of that for sure.
I think so, definitely, man.
This is wonderful. You know, speaking with video and with audio, but there's something special to be said with the sort of the nuances of writing, like the minutia of writing.
Yeah, I always said that I have a love affair with the words.
Of course.
And even like finding new words and adding them to your lexicon and being like, people always ask me like when I talk with words that sometimes most people don't use,
right?
Depending on the situation. Sometimes you just can't find a word to fit, and you know that word, but you're like,
it's gonna fly.
It's gonna fly, yeah. But still, you just use it, right?
Nuances and minutiae.
Yeah, it's true.
I can define those.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you. This has probably been the most foreboding question I've had since I asked you to come do this. Is
devastating.
How do you like what goes into your process of writing? And what gives you this is a two-part question.
Yeah.
What gives you the confidence? How did you feel going up on stage for the first time at a poetry slam and doing your thing?
First of all, there's never any sort of confidence. There's never any semblance of it. I find that, especially when it comes to performing poetry live, there is an inevitable feeling of sort of imposter syndrome, if you will, because you're going up against people that do this for a living. People that do this that are truly looking to make it in that craft. Mm-hmm. So you're humbled to be even in their presence. Aside from that big fear that you have, I find that I can't force myself to write. I can't sit down. I can't know that there's an upcoming poetry slam and then sit down and write a piece for it.
Yeah.
There has to be something that comes naturally in the weeks leading up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I won't do the slam, or I won't do the competition, or I won't post the poem, or I won't do this, I won't do that. To sit down and sort of corner yourself and say it's time to do some writing, and it's time to do some writing that's going to affect people and have an emotional draw, that's very tough to do.
Yeah.
So that's never really been my method. It has to come naturally. Of course, there are times when you do have a deadline to meet with a piece of poetry. Like I've been involved with, a shameless plug here, Let the Elephants Dance, a very cool fundraiser done by a friend of mine, Michelle Crossman, for mental health awareness, raising funds for Kids Help Home and Cam H. And it's normally dance-based, as you know. And
she's a dancer.
She's a dancer herself. She's also the producer of the show. And she took a risk a couple of years ago and brought me on as a poet in Bipolar. And it worked out very well, but it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, she's invited me to come. I said yes. And then, time passed very quickly, and all of a sudden it's showtime in 2 days. So I had to write a poem. And it ended up being one of my favorite poems I've ever written. It was fantastic. I almost cracked at the end of my delivery on stage. Like I was almost in tears by the end of it. And I came off stage and her dad was there. And I don't really know her father at all, but he was off stage and he gave me the biggest hug. And he was like, thank you so much for all of that. Because Michelle lost her cousin Laura to suicide. So it's very important to the families, but then it should be very important to everybody. But to have that sort of deadline can be tough sometimes. But depending on the situation, you can
work it through.
Something comes from within in order to hit that deadline.
It's interesting you said that because there's pieces I've written previously. I had a blog going for roughly 3 years called Project Carpe Diem, and I've looked back at some of the works now and things I've written, and I'm like, I didn't write that. It's like, it almost seems like it's too polished for it to be myself. And it's one of those things where you said it just kind of comes over you and you find, I don't know if you get the same thing, because I'm not a writer who does the whole 1,000 words a day type of thing. I tried it.
Oh God, no.
It's very difficult, man, and
it's nearly impossible.
It doesn't lend itself to. I guess it does to the creative process, but it becomes more like a job. So the same type of thing. Like when I write, I find that when I look back at some of the work, I'm just like, wow, that just seems like somebody else. I've seen people do that with music too. Like say that, like that piece of music. I don't know how I wrote that. Like do you know what I mean?
I got to tell you, I had this conversation last night with my partner and her friend. He was over. We had some dinner. They're both artists. She's a singer and performer. He is also somewhat of a singer and performer. And we were talking about that exact fact. Like looking back on some of the work that you've done, and I do this all the time. I'm like, how did I do that? Who was that guy? Like I can't write like that anymore. Like what headspace was I in that I was able to come up with these unbelievable pieces? Like I'll look back on and be like, this is amazing. This is some really good stuff that I wrote. And I wonder now how. It's tough to even like emulate that, and of course you shouldn't try to emulate your previous work, but you look back on it and you're like, I must have been writing this from a different stance, sort of a different mind space. It's very interesting.
It's funny, when I wrote, I can remember the whole way I thought. Like I just got a really bad breakup. It was like 4.5 years, and then I started the project. Then I moved to Edmonton. I continued the project, and I came back. Same thing. Still continued the writing, and a lot of the work I did is it just when you look at it, and you try to, like I always say, like a big profound maxim from the Huckleberrymumble, which is talked about it last week, the Book of the Samurai, is that you should only judge the only person you should be in competition with is the person you were before. I find now, like when I think about my headspace then and how free I was compared to now, I feel a little more subdued. I don't know if you feel the same way since the pandemic's hit and like the proliferation of I wouldn't want to call it outrage culture, but people being more cognizant of their words and thinking before they speak, which should have been a regular thing before. But I find sometimes when I post something or I write something I immediately feel like this wave of insecurity. Like, do I want to let these people in?
Yeah.
Whereas before, I didn't care at all. It's
Yeah.
like, know everything about me. This is what I have to share.
For sure.
Maybe you felt the same way, and you didn't have the voice to speak to say it. Well, read this writing, and you might connect with it, type of thing. You know what I mean? So, tell me your experience from how you were. I know this is a pretty broad question.
No.
4 years ago, how you were before compared to now. I know we briefly just talked about you not drinking anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go 4 years ago. I would go 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So to first address the writing thing, then we'll talk about sobriety. But 10 years ago, when I was at U of T studying health science, doing my undergrad, and realized halfway through it that I actually wanted to be a writer. A broke writer and a bartender.
I do know.
I realized that I started a Tumblr blog. That was the easiest way, and that was free.
Yeah.
To sort of publish your work online and then be able to send people a link that goes back to your page. So you had a nice cohesive website to send people. And it was called Fourth Branch at the time. Fourth Branch is the fourth, it's the media.
Yeah.
The government is three branches.
Yeah, Mark Technique talks about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, technically, love that you got that. But yeah, so that was, I spoke it still exists. Like it never, I've tried to download all the stuff off of it because I fear that one day it will disappear.
Yeah. Like
the Tumblr page. So obviously I haven't been active on it in forever, but I spoke with such a stream of consciousness vibe and delivery. Mm-hmm. I was talking about everything and anything. I was young, I was in school for something I didn't want to do, I was experimenting with drugs at the time. I was, learning to drink, having experiences with women, which I had never really sort of ran with before. I was having success with that at the same time. So that was also a huge focal point of the blog. So it's very interesting. Like I haven't written anything as free-spirited as that in a long time. I look back on it and I wish that now I had the courage to write in the same way, but at the same time, I wonder if it's better that I didn't. Mm-hmm.
I get that feeling.
I look at it and I envy my previous self, but at the same time, I wonder if that same sort of material or that courage would be construed in the same way these days, or if it would be crucified.
Yeah.
Because I read some of it, and some of it is a little dicey.
Borderline, yeah.
Not in a, and anybody can read it.
Yeah.
There's nothing weird on there, but it's not necessarily representing my best self or how I feel about the way that I carry myself these days. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it was that. I feel like that was an experimental time for you, and even when it's funny that our trajectories are kind of similar because I went to school for accounting.
Yeah.
And I was very good at accounting. I had really good grades.
Yeah.
But I found I was writing scripts in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I took off and went to British Columbia after I worked for about a year and a half at IKEA, and then I got a co-signer for a loan, and within a week I was gone, film school, sent everything away, and the experience was like very fast-paced, and even the same reverence that I was writing with before, like you said, it wasn't that I was nothing that I had was racy or to say the least, but I was the same type of thing coming into experimenting with women and what I liked, what my tastes were, musically, clothing wise, like what represents all young
sexuality is a huge part.
Well, all young people kind of go through, and then you can never get that back. I thought I'd have it forever, and you can never really go back to that time. And we like my friend and I often talk about, because he was in British Columbia with me and went to school, but the innocence of our minds back then, with no social media. We were running off ICQ on a modem, a 56K modem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
There was no smartphones.
Can't make a phone call.
So it was a completely different time, and it's very difficult to think back on that time. Now, the sobriety thing is like, you hit me with that today, it really knocked me for a loop because not only you, but the previous guest I had last week, who's also a bartender, he said he stopped, he hasn't drank since July.
Yeah.
Now you tell me it's been much longer, and you and I used to chop it up and have beers quite frequently.
Yeah, and I do miss the social aspect of it, but I found, like, I was at the point where I've always had like stomach issues. That's just always been a part of my life. I generally don't eat amazing. Yeah. You know, I push it sometimes. Yeah. But in addition to that, I was drinking at a level that was too much. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I realized it was too much. And then I ended up getting 3 ulcers that I was hospitalized for.
Really?
Yeah, I spent like 3 days in the hospital. I guess I had them deep in my trachea. I was bleeding out, essentially. Like, my stomach was full of blood. I was pooping blood. I was puking blood. Wow. And I kind of hit it. And I was staying at my partner's parents' place in Stony Creek. And the one morning I got up to take a shower, and I was a little woozy getting out of bed. And when I was in the shower, I wouldn't even say blacking out, I started whiting out. Like, I started fainting. Everything looked very digital, very pixelated. And I was in the shower, and I was just standing there, and I realized I had to hold on to something, like the door of the shower, to keep myself vertical. Yeah. And at that point, I realized I had to sit down. So I quickly sat down in the shower just to kind of
brace yourself.
Just to do that, and then shut off the shower, got back up, realized I was gonna fall. So it sounds ridiculous, but I like turned off the shower, stepped onto the towel outside of it, put my butt down on it because I was fucking woozy. Yeah. Opened the bathroom door and yelled downstairs to the kitchen, because the way the bathroom is set up, you can almost see the kitchen. Yeah. I don't know houses, but it's certain styles. Yeah. And her mom, my mother-in-law, she's my mom. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I was like, Marianne, I'm about to pass out. I need to go to the hospital. So she comes up, she freaks out, and whatever. She takes me to the hospital, and yeah, I was bleeding from the inside out. My stomach was full of blood. That's why I was puking. That's why I was pooping black and all of that. And it was just a big wake-up call. Like, I was, still experimenting with cocaine. Not experimenting. Actually, that's a real way to downplay it. I was, doing cocaine sometimes. Yeah. Things like that. And I was just drinking too much. So it was time for, it was like a do or die situation. Yeah. And it was also a big wake-up call because, like, alcoholism, and I still identify as both a drug addict and an alcoholic. It's not something, when people are like, oh, I'm an ex-alcoholic, there's no such thing. Yeah. If you're somebody born with an addictive sort of personality or an addiction issue, you have that for the rest of your life. Yeah. You're not an ex anything. Every day you're choosing not to drink and you're choosing not to do drugs. It doesn't end. So anyway, yeah, I had to make a decision, and I did, and it was one of the best ones that I ever made. Yeah. I have lots more money. Yeah. And my frame of mind is better in general. My relationships are better. I have just a certain clarity that I didn't have before. Yeah. I of course miss drinking because, again, I'm not an ex-alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I've had a number of very huge events that I attended over the last year. I was the best man at my buddy's wedding, and so that was tough. Just not, having to. I still had something in my cup when I was raising for a toast. Yeah. But then, I either mind it or just put it down or whatever. Yeah. Had my water, and then my partner's sister got married last month or the month before, and for that, it's a big Italian wedding. Bunch of people, everybody's drinking, lots of vino going around, and I'm having tonic water because it's the closest thing I can get to gin. Minus the gin. Yeah. So it was interesting, but I don't know, it's worth it. And I truly have the belief that, recently I watched, and I know she's not everybody's favorite right now, the Demi Lovato documentary. She's one that started with, addiction issues and all of that. And her statement that she made is she's soberish. Like, she's gotten rid of the drugs, but she has allowed herself to have a drink every now and again. And then on that same documentary, Elton John, who's somebody who struggled with severe addiction issues in the past and alcoholism, he has said that there's no in between. You're either sober or you're not.
Yeah.
You can't. If you have one drink, you'll be as soon as you have one drink, you'll be able to justify having one more.
Yeah.
And then it's 4 drinks, and then you're drunk.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's probably the easiest way to deal with sobriety, or to embrace sobriety. Yeah. If I had one drink, I would love to have 8.
Yeah.
It's easier to have none. This is my jam.
Yeah.
This is my
Kombucha.
jam.
Yeah.
Honestly, I spend more money on kombucha now than I did on like alcohol and cocaine combined.
Oh, really?
That shit's expensive.
Yeah, it's my friend makes it.
Yeah. Well, hook us up.
Yeah, man. That's interesting. I had no idea all those things happen.
Yeah.
I, like you, have addiction issues. Not to drugs. And that's probably because one of my closest friends growing up, he passed away from drug overdose. I'm just partying and having a good time. He was the record promoter, and that's kind of part and parcel with the whole music industry.
Right.
Had that not happened to him, who knows? Because I'm someone who could be, I could be, find myself very enthralled or intertwined with MDMA. Because when I experimented with that, it was like, wow, this is incredible. I feel so happy. But knowing myself, it's very, one of the biggest things, I like to play poker, and it's like, I
do remember that about
I have buyer's remorse. So that's the only thing that keeps me from like teetering over.
Yeah.
With the drug thing. It's funny, all those years I bartended 12 years, I didn't even know people were doing it anymore, because I'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
Like, back home, I grew up in Oshawa, most of the time.
The dirty schwa.
Yeah. Cocaine wasn't so prevalent growing up, it was more weed and ecstasy.
Yeah.
And then, as I kind of, for a long, like, I probably came into the understanding that almost, 40-50% of the staff at any point I'm working a shift are on cocaine.
Yes.
After that was probably like 4 years ago I learned that. I had no idea. I would never be able to tell. And it was profound to me, because I'm wondering, like, I remember having conversations with people who were talking so much, and I'm like, I wish they would just shut up, and I just can't find a pause in the conversation and stop talking to them. And when I realized, oh, that's what this does.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing, man. It's a really powerful thing, and I give you all kudos for being able to fight with that, an ongoing fight with that.
It is. Oh, every day. Like, I'm not kidding. Every day, I choose not to do cocaine. And not to have a drink.
Yeah. I asked my.
It's not in the past. Sorry.
No,
it's not. It's nothing in the past.
It's
every day.
Yeah.
I have to make that decision every day.
And then to go along with that, my friend would say, like, it's part and parcel with drinking. It's they kind of piggyback off each other.
They do.
And in that regard, it just kind of threw me for a loop. I remember watching a J. Cole interview where he's talking about drinking and how he stopped drinking, and he just like, he doesn't. His whole concept, his whole theory behind it, it's like, I can't go anywhere without having a drink socially. So that thing now has command over me, it has power over me, and I don't like anything having power over me. And you said the same thing about the laptop with the tape on the camera.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like I just like to be. I like to be free, and I like to make sure that nothing has me in its grips.
Of course.
So like, complete kudos to you, man. That's humongous. That's a huge
Thank you.
thing to tackle, an ongoing issue to tackle. That's a huge step, man.
Yeah, and thank you. But again, it's not even something that I look for kudos on.
Yeah.
Like 1 year past, I didn't celebrate it. I didn't fucking get a pin or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I don't go to meetings or anything like that. Like, that's not for me. I understand that may work for some people. A lot of it's secular, which is definitely not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a religious man. I'm a spiritual man. There's something bigger than us. It's definitely not God.
Yeah. I don't even get me started on that. It's like, that whole aspect of
There's a
things.
creator, but it might just be science. Or
Yeah, absolutely. Even the imagery around religion is kind of weird to me, but that's neither here or there. It's like, I look at things very profoundly, just based on how small we are in the scope of even our own planet, how small we are, and then you look at it in regards to the galaxy, and then the expanse of the universe.
Yeah.
That you're very your life's. We talked about this previously. We were talking about your partner and not really wanting to go back to just remedial work.
Yeah.
She wants to do something more. I'm assuming I'm of the same mind as well. I think COVID really gave us a grasp of what we could be, our potential. And for some people it wasn't that. A lot of people suffered some hardships and a lot of suicide and drug overdoses and domestic abuse happening over COVID as well. Not to mention the virus itself. But for the people who are able to take some time to take stock of where they are and where their life is going, I find that it's very difficult to go back to where you were previously. Like I was a bartender. I enjoyed bartending. I'll be 40 next year. I'm still able to bartend, and I still look young enough to bartend when people still consider me 26. But it's like I've now been without that for a year and a half.
Yep.
So my mind is completely transformed from that whole element of working late nights, and for me it was never sleeping in. I woke up early when I went to the gym, but I'd still be at a cost because I'd be working till 2 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 3:30, then wake up at 9, then tear my muscles down without the full 8 hours sleep, and then come back, shower, eat as fast as I could, and head back to work. So it was a constant rat race. And if my 9 years ago self saw myself today, be like, yo, you were supposed to be traveling the world. And
what a concept, though, speaking to your previous self.
Oh my God.
I don't even think about that.
It's alarming, but it helps me take stock of where I am and how to improve. Like, I don't, even in particularly bad situations when I feel like the world is crushing down on me, I feel a lot more of late because I feel like I'm up. I don't know if you feel the same thing, just we're older guys. I'm up against the wall now. I'm back.
I'm not as old as him, by the way.
Like, the whole thought process now is like, okay, well, how much time do I have for actual exploration into a career choice or a path that I wanted to now delve into? I, like you, have a significant other, and I would like to get married at some point. And I'm lucky that she's an artist as well, and she understands me because she's probably the first person that I've been with that's a complete artist and is 100% supportive of everything. But at the same token, I'm like, as I know this is gonna sound weird because we talked about toxic masculinity last week, but as a man, I just feel like, okay, like, you should have a plan. You should have a plan, and I feel like that assertion or assertiveness allows. It's an attractive quality, right? So I'm like, if I don't have a plan, I'm just kind of counting days.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not really making good use of my time, on my limited time on this earth, and I'm also not doing any service to the relationship because it's going to stay stagnant because we're not really progressing, right? And my whole belief is that in a relationship, for it to be healthy and grow, you have to grow together. I find when people have issues in relationships, it's usually because one person is deciding to do new things and the other person wants to stay pat.
It causes resentment.
Exactly. And I would never want to do that. Having an understanding of that now, I'm like, okay, well, that being as it is, then when she wants to do something new, she tried dancing and she loved it. And if I was an insecure person, I'd be like, oh, you're dancing with other dudes, and like, that's not cool. But no, it's like, no, you do that. I support you. And one of the biggest things, you might not know it, that I took from you, from most of my close friends, I take aspects of their personality and I try to add it to mine or tack it on or try to incorporate some way. And beyond the writing and the crazy amount of skill you have writing and your your grasp of the English language and how you talk to people. I found that you have a reverence for women that's, it's gonna sound corny me saying this, but it's like a very respectful, like honoring of like women. And I find that we share that. And when I say that, I don't mean like going out and being, what's it called, promiscuous or anything like that. Like you actually, you actually like respect the people you're. I've seen you with people,
of course,
and how you conduct yourself. And when you're single, whatever the case is. Do what you want to do. But when you're with somebody, like you almost look at them with an admiration that it's like it's something that I connect with and vibe with you at a different level, because most of my friends aren't like that. And most people, when we work together, our age at that time, it's like people aren't thinking that. You're a young bartender in the city, you're making money, you're good looking, you're doing your thing. It's like, no, they want to be promiscuous. But I always thought that aspect of your personality was excellent. I don't know where you got that from. Last week I attributed most of that to Sex and the City for me. That got me to that point.
Literally rewatched it like a month ago.
That
show is my jam.
That's my jam too.
But I don't know. I'd like to thank my mother. As everybody does. I remember I started dating when I was in kindergarten. So I was 5 years old.
You, me too. You both.
So I came home from school one day when I was 5 years old, and I slumped down the stairs, turned to my mom. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Bianca dumped me today." And she's like, "Well, you must have been doing something stupid." That was it. That was it. That was the tough love. Like, it wasn't like, "Oh, Jordan." She's like, "Well, you must have done something stupid." You gotta, I don't know. And when we were working together at Boston Pizza, I was a single man who was, I wouldn't say being promiscuous. I had relationships with a good handful of people at the same time,
I know.
of which they all knew everything. Honesty is always my best policy. And to all the young men out there that are trying to do this silly little juggling act and sleep with a whole bunch of people for the sake of just sleeping with people, it's a Jenga tower that eventually is going to collapse the more you pull out the pieces. You need to be honest with everybody, you need to be open, and if you just got to be honest with everybody. You need to have a certain respect for everybody that you're with. Like I don't know. Honesty is the best policy.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because I feel like I hope this is not getting too in depth, but I feel like when you being honest with those girls, it almost created.
I won't name names.
I'm not saying no, because I don't know. That's their story to tell, or your story to tell, not for me to say. But they it almost created competition between those individual women. Like they wanted to be the one.
Not because I was trying to do that.
No, I know you were trying to do that, but I've never seen that before. I've never experienced that before. So I'm like, what is this? This guy is like, this is a whole new paradigm I didn't know existed.
It's not even, again, it wasn't even an intentional thing. It's just to be, just be open and honest with everybody. If you want to have multiple partners on an ongoing basis, you need to let everybody know about what's going on. By all means, like, have multiple partners, have sex with as many people as you want. Just if you're going to continuously see multiple people, you gotta let them know. Be upfront. And it's up to them to decide if that's something they're interested in carrying on or not. And transparency is always the best policy.
I agree.
And as the great Hank Moody once said, I love women. I have all their albums.
that's another thing we vibed on. The whole Hank Moody of it all, the whole Californication of it all. Hank Moody. Wow. It's a name I
rewatched that too. Recently.
I have not rewatched that.
I did it during COVID with my partner. It's as good as you remember. Kind of falls off the later stages.
He does fall off the later stages. I remember Susan Sarandon's daughter I was in love with. And she was in the later seasons. How did you meet your partner?
We went to high school together.
Oh, really?
Yep. She is 2 years younger than me. And we did not really have any sort of a relationship in high school, I was 2 years older. Cool guy. She was a drama kid, and I was an athlete and an academic as well. And but I always had my eye on her. She doesn't believe it to this day. Like when we talk about it, she's like, "You didn't even know who I was or like care." And I'm like, "No. Like I always had an eye." But I was also in relationships all through high school. Like in spite of the fact that I love sexuality and having multiple partners and all that, I am truly like one for monogamy. Like, I'm a serial monogamist for sure. I would much rather go to bed with the same person every night. But I mean, if not, it's lonely in this world without a stranger in your bed. So. But anyway, so we went to high school together, and then we I guess we spoke maybe once or twice. We had each other on Facebook. And so when I moved to Toronto, when I was 18 to go to U of T for health science. 2 years later, she moved to Toronto to go to York for theater. And we met up at some point just to go for, I think it was just, we went for coffee or something like that. And at one point I was in Hamilton as well, and we went for Chinese food. Anyway, we had a very loose connection, but we were always kind of flirting through Facebook Messenger. And then recently, when I moved back to Hamilton, after a whole bunch of personal stuff that came up in my life, my bipolar came to a peak, and my parents got divorced, and it kind of all happened at the same time. My alcoholism and drug addiction also peaked at the same time. It's just a perfect storm. So anyway, moved back to Hamilton to be with my mom. That was sort of when my partner and I really connected, because she would be home every once in a while to visit her parents, who were also in Hamilton. So we would hang out. We'd go for drives together, stuff like that. And I fell like just stupidly head over heels for her. And she had just come out of she actually was still in a relationship, I think, when we were first hanging out, going for drives. Nothing obviously happened. Like I genuinely respected her as a person, as an artist, as somebody to hang out with. And then they ended up splitting up, and her and I kept touch. And I had really sort of decided in my head that this is the woman that I wanted to be with. Whereas she was definitely not ready to jump back into a relationship. She made that super clear. And I was an incessant pest. I just wouldn't leave. Just kept bugging her about it. And eventually I wore her down, and we were now together.
That's amazing. It worked.
She's still like, looking back on it, she's still like, I never wanted to date you. Like I wasn't looking for a new partner. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. I don't think I was ready, but I don't know. To the best of my knowledge, she's happy now. I think it's been just over 3 years.
That's awesome.
I'm happy. She's a salt of the earth. She's an amazing person. She pushes me to do better, and I hope I do my best to do the same for her. Very happy though. Very happy.
I love that. There's a little piece of that you had in there about your bipolar. And the Gentleman's Guidebook, how this whole thing started was just me asking questions and looking for answers for things that men usually don't talk about. Mental health is obviously one that's kind of big. Now, as you see, it's kind of a movement going towards that with Bell Talk and the whole things that have happened during the pandemic. I have a couple friends who also are bipolar. My ex-girlfriend was, what's it called? Asperger's. She had Asperger's. That was a difficult thing to deal with as well at the time. I like to use this platform. I hate that word, but I don't like buzzwords. But to help educate men on things that we don't regularly talk about, and also highlight some things that people could do in order to help better themselves. I don't know if you could go into it a little bit about the mental health issue, but before you do, I want to tell you a situation, a scenario that happened that you might not even think too much of. There was a day we went out drinking, and we were on Front Street, and we were bouncing between Jack's and Boston Pizza, and I was looking to date somebody that worked at Boston Pizza at the time, and she was working. And I'm at the bar. I think we were with 7 people. Will was there, and you started crying, like profusely crying. And he was there and he's hugging you, and I kept looking over, and I wanted to know if you were all right. because in my mind you're such a strong dude. I have like a set crew of dudes I've met bartending, besides the ones I grew up with that were at the bar that I grew up in Whitby. But the guys I've met here since I've been back in the city, you're one of those guys that just exuded ultimate strength and confidence. When I saw you cry that day, and I'm just like, yo, something must really be wrong, because this guy is just really strong. I never asked you about it. I never talked to you about it. I thought it's your own thing. Now having this whole medium here, I wanted to let you know that I was really worried for you at that time, and I had no idea. And this is later on in our relationship, you told me about your issues with bipolar, and I don't know, man, it just shook me. I'd never seen something like that at that point, because we were having fun. It wasn't like a breakup or something, you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
But it really affected me, and it still affects me to this day. Obviously, it's like 5 years later, and I'm still I still remember,
of course,
very vividly. Could you go in a little bit about your experience with bipolar and how you diagnosed it, or it was diagnosed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my entire life I've always been it's always been, and looking back on it, and then speaking to my mom about it, she said that even when I was a young child, she knew there was something up, because I was either here or I was here. Evidently, it never crossed her mind to take me to a doctor to get that looked at, which is fine. Love you, Mom. You're not going to watch this, but I hope not. So it's just anyway. So it's weird to even talk about, but I'm so down. Just give me a second.
Yeah, man, do your thing.
Okay, so anyway, when I left high school, moved to Toronto, blah blah blah. Experimented with my whole youth phase, did all of that, and then going into my more adult years, 24, 25, at a certain point I realized, or there were points when I realized that I was having incredibly high highs and incredibly low lows. And so I went to a doctor about it. I went to CAMH at one point for my addiction issues, and they were like, okay, in addition to your addiction issues, like, you're bipolar too, like that's what you are, like, this is your diagnosis. And I literally looked them dead in the eye and I was like, fuck off, I'm not bipolar, and I left. That was like, they had a prescription ready to give me, and I was like, I'm not bipolar, and they left it at that. A year later, maybe less than that, manic episodes, without me realizing at the time that there were manic episodes, led up to me going back to doctors, and again they said, you're bipolar, and again I said, fuck off, I'm not bipolar, like that's a crazy person thing, you know what I mean? I'm not crazy, just a normal dude. And then eventually got to the point where I had truly like not a revelation, but everything just kind of came to a head, and I got diagnosed a third time, and I sort of embraced it. I realized that it truly does explain everything about me. Like my highs are higher than your highs, and not to speak on your speaking, in generalities, and my lows are lower than most people's lows. Like, when I'm up, like, there are more colors in my rainbow than yours, but when I'm low, it's really bad. Which is, it's kind of tough to like explain to yourself or justify to yourself, because I'm always like a happy-go-lucky guy, but like I'm oftentimes very dark, and that's where a good portion of my best writing stems from, which is not something any artist should hold on to for the sake of art. I'll say that, and we can discuss that after.
Yeah, definitely.
But and it got to the point where I didn't medicate for it. They gave me a prescription for, what was it, valproic acid or something like that. I threw it out. I didn't fill the prescription. But I just sort of started to manage my bipolar more consciously through, and it sounds stereotypical, but like diet, exercise, going to sleep on a regular schedule. Because if you're bipolar, one of the best things you can do for yourself is build a routine. It's changes in routine that really start to mess with you. And those changes can cause either manic episodes, which is when you're too high up, and you're Superman, you're invincible. Like, I would go and it freaked people out. I would go 3-4 days, shut off my phone, not come home, bounce from friend to friend's house, not tell them that I had my phone off or that I wasn't talking to anybody, like nobody could find me. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then your lows are just, you can't get out of bed for 4 days. You cannot get out of bed. You can't get up to eat. Like you're looking for, this sounds crazy, but like you're looking for a nearby empty water bottle or something to piss in because you can't even stomach the thought of going down to the washroom to take a piss, you know? And then in my truly, I think of this as like my third phase of being a mature adult. We're sort of coming to grips with my mental health issues. And this was super recent. It was actually a year ago. I started going to a therapist and chatting, and I also started taking medication for my bipolar. And my therapist, he's an older man, so he's very traditional. So he prescribed me lithium, which is like, I mean, Kurt Cobain Nirvana made an entire song about it. It is the traditional crazy person drug that you take. So I was prescribed the lowest dose possible. I think it's like 0.25 or 0.4 milligrams, something like that. Because the entire idea that scared me, I was like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. I don't want to do this though. You know, I still want to feel something. Yeah. So anyway, I started taking the lithium on like an extremely low dose, and I found incredible success with it. Because I was still every once in a while going manic, not to the degree that I was in the past, where I would disappear for 3 days, but I would. Every once in a while, my brain would just like a switch would flip, and I would lose 2 hours of my life in memory, where I'm speaking too fast. I'm at home, even talking to my partner or like cooking or something like that, speaking too fast, having full conversations, maybe getting upset about something, and then when the mania passes, I don't remember any of it. And she's explaining it to me. She's like, "What just happened?" And I don't know what to tell her, you know. So that was freaky. So and the medications helped that. Like just again a blanket statement, but like if you get diagnosed with something and a doctor tells you that you should take this, like don't be a hero. Like take it, try it out, figure it out. It might take you a couple of different drugs until you find it. Whether it's like depression is the biggest one, in that there's so many different antidepressants you can take. Like there are SSRIs. There's a number of different things you can take, and they're not for everybody. Yeah. So you have to take each one, give it a chance, find the one that works for you, and then you got to stick to it. Yeah. And you got to give it a fighting chance. You can't just, you can't just be skipping your pill every once in a while. You have to take it religiously. And so anyway, that's where I'm at. So I still take a teeny tiny dose of lithium every night. It certainly helps. Haven't been manic for a while, and therapy is amazing, man. And it took me a while to even get a therapist because, again, writer, bartender, I'm broke. Yeah. So I can't afford to, spend $250 an hour on a therapist. So it took a while to find an OHIP covered therapist. Okay. Because there's a whole process you have to go through. Thankfully, my partner was able to sort of help me with that, like walk me through what you need to do, because you need to like place a bunch of calls and put yourself on waiting lists. So eventually I got a guy, I got the dude, and it doesn't cost me a dime. But yeah, it takes time. It's definitely something everybody should explore. Yeah, everybody should talk to somebody. It shouldn't be your partner, it shouldn't be your parents. You gotta talk to a third party. Yeah,
I found that never had that experience, and for the longest time, it's very difficult for me to understand the complexities of how those highs are the highest highs and the lowest of lows. Yeah. Because my personality is such that when I'm really, really low, I get down on myself. Give myself, maybe it might last a day, it might last 2 days, and then after a while I'm just like, no, time to make a change, make some positive changes. It's constantly an internal conversation with me though. Yeah. But along the way, a lot of things that have helped me is being able to, and I know this is kind of, for me personally, going to the bar and talking to a friend, not getting drunk or whatever, but just like sitting there and talking. And when I was in Oshawa, it was much easier because the guys I grew up with that know me my whole life grew up in the same street with me. Yeah. My closest friends, right? I'd be able to, at any point, I mean, I came to a point where one of my friends, I was going out for breakfast with him 4 days a week, and we go to the same bar. It's the two of us. We play cards back and forth for 4 hours, and we just sit there and talk about everything under the sun. And I remember at his wedding, there's 3 of us. We all grew up in the same street. We were in his groomsmen for his wedding, and the third member is like, I always felt like it was a 2-player game, and I just never got to turn on the joystick. And it wasn't. I talked to him as well.
Yeah.
You know, I saw him last weekend. It was his birthday, but certain things I go to each of them for.
Yeah.
And when I told you at the beginning, like, I consider you family, there's not a lot of people I let within my sphere that haven't known me from the beginning. I didn't suffer from the same thing, but the conversations mean so much to me. I talked about before when you got here about it's a picture of us from 2016.
Yeah.
At a patio talking and drinking, and it's kind of where the Gentleman's Guidebook started. But those kind of conversations are so invaluable to me. Conversations with anybody, but more importantly with dudes. For me personally, because it's a sounding board, and you know, they might have the same experience you do, and I find so often that people don't actually express how they're feeling, and it's such a taboo to express, for a man to express how he feels. Even now, in this current climate where things are being more tailored towards expressing yourself and being conscious and of what you're saying and how you're portrayed and how people view you. All these things, like it's an amalgamation of creating a finished product of yourself. I've always wanted to reach my zenith.
Right.
So, I mean, that's big that you were able to actually sit there and figure that out after 3 times in going and being told. But I find it's the thing with everybody. Some people just have it different degrees of it. You know what I mean? The conversations we had, we were both broke. When we started at that job with bartending, it was a humongous pay decrease from where we were previously.
Oh my God, yeah. And
it was just on the strength of your good friend that you came in, on the strength of my good friend who was poached by your good friend.
For sure.
Why I went there.
You were brought in as the dudes to fix it.
You know what I mean? So
tough.
it was super tough, and the money wasn't there, and the consistency wasn't there, and it was just such a tough process, and I was struggling. But what got me through a lot of those times is the conversations we would have.
Yeah.
Either sitting at the bar, wait till you're working, I'm talking to you, or wait after work, we go somewhere. I don't think people truly, there's this whole, I'm rambling now, but there's this whole culture now of giving people flowers while they're still here. And that's always been in my mindset. I mean, when I did the previous blog, the Project Carpe Diem, one of the things was to have my funeral while I'm still alive. And I find that, you know, people say the most beautiful things, touching things when a person dies, but never tells them that when they're alive. You know, and I'll reiterate this again, I said it last week, it's always been my goal to make everyone know that how much I care about them. Because you never know what people are going through. For sure. You know what I mean? And what the impact they've had in your life. I'm pretty sure you never knew that. I saw that and I felt such a way about that, and it affected me so profoundly. And it made me think, and I'm just me by myself thinking, so I'm like, I'd have to reason with myself as to what happened to my friend.
Right.
Because I don't want to pry into your business. That's a huge step, man. And you know, we did talk about the writing process and how you were saying how you shouldn't write from a dark place. It's funny you say that.
It's not that you shouldn't write from a dark place, it's that you shouldn't keep yourself in a dark place for your art.
Okay. That actually works better for what I'm thinking.
Okay, great. Yeah. It's like, if you're in a dark place, fuck, write on. Write some music, make some videos, do whatever it is creatively you want to do. But don't like, I'm losing my, what's the term here? Don't avoid happiness for the sake of art.
Oh, okay.
Don't run from happiness because, you know, you need to be Bukowski to, you know, just a miserable alcoholic prick.
Yeah.
He was great, but like, you don't have to put yourself in that mindset all the time. You don't have to run from happiness. You can still succeed.
Yeah.
You can still be a great poet or a great writer or a great filmmaker, director, whatever. You don't have to be a dark son of a bitch in order to, you know.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
So yeah, just to piggyback off of that, the best writing book I've ever read is Stephen King on writing, and that he talks about the way he structures his book is incredible. I will be bringing books of the week because I keep talking about books.
Oh yeah, well,
I talk about books.
Idea.
So it was very enlightening to see his whole process because the first portion. This is a how-to book on writing, but the first portion of the book, I'd say the first 4 chapters about his life. So it's structured as an autobiography. Then he gets into his writing process of the movies he's written and where he was in his life, and he was an alcoholic and he was addicted to cocaine. And he's chronic. He was what they call it, like chain smoker.
Yeah.
But he talks about how he got to the other side, and along the same lines, he didn't want to be keeping himself in that realm just for the purpose of the work, right? That's one of those things that I would never have. I went to film school for writing. They never explain that aspect of it. You know what I mean? Right. And I know it is a part of it because I've watched TV shows where writers like Moody, they're almost self-destructive.
The right blue place of despair.
Yeah. And even when I used to draw, drawing and writing, it's usually the extreme of an emotion that gets me to the greatest piece, whether it's elation or whether it's misery or sadness. Like these things, some people use music to help them cope. Some people use art. Whatever the case is it's the coping mechanism of using your art like that is really dope. I'm kind of trailed off. I don't know if I'm rambling again. But yeah, that's interesting that you said that. I wanted to actually ask you about that because you said I didn't know that you were studying what you were studying in school originally, because I was studying to be an accountant, but you said you did your MCATs. Is it MCAT you did?
Yeah, I finished my undergrad, wrote my MCATs for fun. And
what made you...
Got accepted to every band school in Canada and then didn't go.
Is this a paradigm shift? You just couldn't see yourself doing that anymore?
Well, in high school, and this is going to sound like an ego bump. Yeah. I had the grades in high school without any effort to do whatever I wanted to do. The stereotypical lawyer, doctor, all that sort of crap. And I essentially in my head flipped a coin whether I wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor. And I realized that I didn't want to be a lawyer. I now regret that. Yeah. But anyway, so I went to school. I went to health science. I was sitting with my buddy in religion class, my buddy Matt St. Floyd. And I was just like, I think I'm going to go to Toronto and I just go for health science. I'm going to apply to a bunch of schools for health science, but I want to go to Toronto. And he's like, he's also a wickedly intelligent dude. I now work with him at the restaurant. He's a chef.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're attached to him. Yeah. Just an exceptional dude, like salt of the earth. I don't think you've ever met him. No. I will introduce you at one point. We'll go for coffee or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I was thinking of going to Toronto as well because we didn't want to stay in Hamilton. We didn't want to go to McMaster because we'd have to live at our parents' house because we already live in Hamilton. Yeah. And it would be real stupid to get a house to live 5 minutes away from your parents. Yeah. So anyway, we applied to a bunch of schools. He applied for film studies actually and criminology, and I applied for health science to a bunch of different schools. We all got accepted to all of them. And when we got our acceptances, we were sitting in that religion class. I think we were baked actually. We would oftentimes smoke weed in my garage before he would drive us to work or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna go to Toronto. He was like, yeah, I'll come. So we both accepted our U of T offers. Yeah. We went to res together with another one of our buddies, my girlfriend at the time, my high school sweetheart. We did that for a year, and then after that second year, we got a place together. And it was in that second year that I realized that so the reason that I wanted to get into health science as opposed to being a lawyer, I find the body very interesting. I've always been like an athletic person, played lacrosse my whole life, football my whole life, every sport under the sun. Yeah. Lacrosse and hockey growing up. Lacrosse I was exceptional at. Hockey, I was wildly mediocre, but had a good time. And the more I started to learn about the body, the more intrigued I was by it. And then when I began to learn even more, I realized that we have everything figured out about the body. You know, the heart is, 2 pumps, 4 valves, whatever. You know what I mean? It's all very finite. It's all very tangible. But the one thing we don't know anything about is the mind, or the brain. Like the brain, but then beyond that, the mind. We don't have that figured out yet.
No.
And so in second year, I submitted myself to a dissection program where they accept 4 students from the second year to dissect cadavers every Friday to set them up anatomically for first year students to study. For whatever reason, I got accepted. And so I got to cut up bodies for an entire year.
Yeah.
And the body is so simple. It sounds so ridiculous to even say that, but it's no different than like a chicken that you're, like if you pull this up here, when a body's cut open, this finger moves. And like the heart is just this and whatever. The brain is this big mass of stuff. We don't have a clue what goes on in there. We don't know why people are intelligent. We don't know why people kill people. We don't know why people have addiction issues. We don't know why people are depressed. We don't know why people feel the way they feel. We don't have that figured out yet. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So anyway, my interest was in neurosurgery in order to.
This guy's really dreamy, bro. This guy's Dirk Shepard. Keep going.
The interest was in working on the brain because that was the only thing that we didn't have figured out yet.
Yeah.
The idea of being a heart surgeon to me was too simple. We already know. We're all going to do the same thing and nobody's going to discover anything new. I have no interest in that.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a little more. But then, whatever. Fast forward, the 2 years in the undergrad, and I realized, because that's when I started blogging for my fourth branch thing, that's truly what I wanted to do. I wanted to write about anything under the sun. I wanted to write about things that people are uncomfortable talking about. I wanted to write about my experiences. I wanted to write about things that people could relate to. I wanted to be able to teach people things without lecturing them. That sort of whole thing. So anyway, I finished I figured that out in second year. I didn't really tell my parents. I think I mentioned to them in third year that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But I was paying my own way through school. That was another huge factor that I look back on, and that's what forced me into bartending.
Yeah.
Because I saved up a whole bunch of money in high school. I was a roofer and a landscaper. So like first year university in Toronto, I paid with my debit card like 11 grand for res, 7 grand for tuition.
Yeah.
But eventually that money ran out because A, Toronto's expensive, B, university is expensive, so I started bartending. But I just started writing. I finished the undergrad. I did a little bit of studying for my MCATs at the end because everybody was like, all the people in my program, there was always jokes. I would never go to lecture. I wouldn't do anything. I would do the bare minimum. I would get the materials that I needed to study for like half a second to go to the exam to write it. But what was annoying to everybody is that I was still going to pull like a 3.9. It was frustrating to people, obviously, because that's super annoying.
Yeah.
And that's a gift, and I know I squandered it. Not squandered it because I feel like I'm using it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just was academia was not for me, But anyway, when I decided that I was definitely going to bow out of academia in general, I still wrote my MCATs so that I could say, I came here, I did what I needed to do, I proved that I could do it.
Yeah.
But I'm now not going to. Not because I couldn't, but because I choose not to.
Yeah.
So I wrote my MCATs, I got accepted everywhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't take up the offer anywhere.
You regret that?
Financially, yeah.
Yeah.
But it would have been 6 years, because it's 4 years, 2 years of school, 2 years of residency, and then for my neurosurgery it would have been an additional 2 years.
Yeah. That's like 10 years, that's 8 years?
Well, 6 years, you're terrible math, but...
Well, I thought you were... You said 4, 2, and 2, did you not?
No, 4 and 2. 4 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah. But either way, I was like, if I'm already not really feeling this, how can I dedicate myself? And the other thing too, that there's post-secondary and then there's med school, which is like, here in Canada, I think it's like, well, it's still only 30 grand a year. If you're going to study in the States, like 150 grand a year. I would have put myself, $400,000 in debt, and 6 years of my life would have been gone in my prime years, if you will.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't dedicate to that. So I figured I would sort of do my own thing. And it was a grind, man. It was a grind.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, you're an amazing writer as well. And even when we were chit-chatting before this about copywriting, the fact that I found a job now where I get paid to be a writer. Mm-hmm. Holy hell, man. I cannot tell you how many years it took and how many hours it took of, like, fruitless grinding. And I hate the term grinding. But, like, just, you know, things where you're not receiving anything in return in order to get to that. And it's still not the most amazing thing ever. I love my job.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get there. But yeah.
Yeah, I was actually looking into the copywriting before the pandemic hit because I wanted to do something within the industry. A friend of mine came from my film school. She came to Toronto for the Toronto Film Festival. She was in the UK.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen her in 10 years. So I took her out for dinner. We went out to, what's it called? Big Crow or Black Crow up on Davenport.
Yeah.
And we just talked. And her movie's called Rocks. She didn't have any major actors. All the kids in the movie were actually kids.
Nice.
And I still have her treatment for her first script that she ever wrote in school. I have all of my friends' treatments. But when I went to England 10 years ago, my girlfriend at the time, she was teaching there, and I went to a party there. To this day, probably top 3 party I've ever been to in my life. So eclectic, man. Oh my god! It was. You know what? You think of like the Adidas commercial with Beckham and Snoop Dogg and all that. That's what this place was. But I hadn't seen her since then, and something she had said. This is going to be a recurring theme of people saying things or me seeing things and not mentioning it. But she said to me, we were there with my girlfriend at the time at the party, and we were in the backyard. Everyone's inside, partying, dancing, whatever, drinking. And we're outside and people are smoking. And she's like, well, what are you working on right now? And I'm like, nothing, I work at the bank. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you don't write anymore? And I'm like, nah, not
so
really.
Devastating to be asked.
Oh my god! And she's like, and there's people there, like strangers that I just met, and she's like, that sucks. You're really talented. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah. It just like it hit you right here. For sure. Same situation happened when I went back to BC 5 years ago. I went back there to visit. Mm-hmm. First time since I've actually been gone from film school. And I got together with my 2 closest friends. I used to walk home with every day. And same thing. Yeah, my one friend's like, man, you are what's it called? Dialogue god.
Yeah.
You should have kept writing. And this thing's stuck with me. So anyways, let me fast forward now to when Claire and I were eating dinner at the Black Crow. I asked her, I'm like, you were also bartending in London. Mm-hmm. She's older than I am. And I think she's 42. And I'm asking her, like, you know, the money was good. You're living in London. Your life is great. Like, how did you get to this point where you're like, I gotta complete this film? Mm-hmm. And she said, you know what? She's like, Mark, it came to a point where I had to like make a choice. Is it gonna be this? I'm gonna stay in this and become a manager, get my own restaurant, do that. Is that gonna be my trajectory? Or I'm gonna actually go through with what I love, what I find the passion in doing, and go that route. Yeah. And that just kind of smacked me in the face. And when it smacked me in the face, I'm like, shit, I gotta make some wholesale changes. Mm-hmm. And this is September before the pandemic. So the pandemic happened in March of the following year. But just getting that, like even having those things being said to me, and it's staying with me, it's like, man, I'm doing myself a disservice by not actually going forward and pursuing this thing that I love. My biggest thing, and I said this last week, and I haven't told you, but I take on too much, you know, and I don't know if that's an issue you have as well. I have just focusing on one medium seems very difficult. My girlfriend's an artist, and she likes to draw. She likes to paint and do everything. She does abstract art, she does pop art. She does pastels. She does so many different things that she's good at all of them, but she's not excellent at one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's Jack of all trades, master of none?
Yeah, that's the exact same term we use.
Yeah.
Did you know there's more to that term, that saying?
Oh, there's
continuing. Okay. I forget what he said. Liam, when he was here last week,
yeah.
he said what it was. And that's always a thing that comes up, because now I know I can still draw, you know, but writing was the thing that got me off my trajectory initially. So writing is still what I deep down in my soul want to do.
Yeah.
You find so much times that you're inundated with so much external pressures of other things. And that's why I can definitely get the headspace that Nicole is in. It's just one of those things. When you have now had the time to sit down and take stock of where you are, it's like, man, like I don't want to do this. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this whole concept came from. You know, like it's hard. That shit is hard. And I don't know, man, to make it, like, I know it might not be as big to you, but with copywriting being as proliferated as it is currently in the marketplace, for you to even get that is huge to me. That, to me, was so impressive when you sat there and told me, you know, I have copywriting, and, you know, it was a lot of work to get there. I know it's a lot of work because I was researching it, right? But yeah, those things, I'm a victim to things people say, and me being self-critical or trying to take advantage of what they say in order. I constantly get on myself about being lazy.
For sure.
And, you know, it's one of those things.
And there's nothing wrong with getting on yourself about being a little lazy, as long as you're not sort of delving into the realm of self-deprecation.
Yeah.
Because there's like, I can't fucking stand that. Hate's a strong word.
Yeah.
I can't stand when people are self-deprecating. Don't sit there and shit on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying get up and reinvent the world, but like, don't shit on yourself.
Yeah.
Just do better, or just stop yelling at yourself about it. You know, like. So it's a fine line, because it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, let's tie back into mental health. Like, it's tough to sort of get on yourself if you are struggling from depression or anxiety or something like bipolar or anything like that. You know.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's a sort of a fine line you gotta tread, a fine line you gotta walk.
Yeah.
So as not to destroy yourself with pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And you mentioned mental health now. I'm thinking back to a time, I don't know if you've experienced this at all, but for me, when all these things social issues are coming and taking into effect, I'm now like thinking, my thought process is like, what it feels like to be a black dude. And obviously you're not black, so you can't really, you can't really vibe with this, but I mean, like, it's one of those things I've never thought of before, and that probably goes into the neuroses I have about being critical of myself, or people being critical of what I do. It's probably why this project didn't come off the ground until now. Yeah. And this is one of those things where I came here to visit my friend, and he's like, "Oh, we have a space available." Yeah. I'm like, "I'll take it." And had I not said that, this ran a month late. This is supposed to debut on October 1st. Had I not said that, I don't know if this would ever got done. Right. You know what I mean? I just had to like shit or get off the pot. And what Claire said to me, Claire is a filmmaker, that rang true to me even at that very point. You know what I mean? Have you came into any realizations about yourself during this period of time? I say that to say this. I wanted to ask you. I hope you take no offense to it, but you call your significant other your partner. Is there any kind of? I remember Common had a line. He said in the song, "There's so much in a name, there's so much more to you." He said, "I don't call you my." He said the whole line was, "I don't call you my bitch or even my boo. There's so much in a name, there's so much more to you." And I find that, you know, I ask people when they. Like, I'm a big Humphrey Bogart fan. I used to call his girl's kid, and like people got on my case when I was in film school 10 years ago, and said, like, that's not right. You shouldn't be calling a woman that. But it's a term of endearment. Yeah. What was the reasoning? What's the reasoning behind that for you? I know
the fact that I call my partner.
Yeah, because you know it's commonplace. My ex-girlfriend used to call me her man friend because she thought boyfriend is weird because I'm not a boy.
Boyfriend is kind of weird.
Yeah, and even when
My partner has never called me her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Partner, I think partner is just like a nice, easy. It's the mature way of referring to, because they're not. If you're not engaged, if you're engaged, then they're your fiance. If you're married, then they're your wife or your husband. Partner is like we're doing this for now.
Yeah.
Boyfriend, it just sounds childish.
It sounds weird, doesn't it?
It sounds like you're not on a journey together.
Yeah.
You know, boyfriend with girlfriend. If I had a girlfriend, like I don't have a girlfriend. I have 6 girlfriends. You know what I mean? I don't currently.
Yeah.
I was the old Jordan. But partner is somebody that you're walking a path with.
Mm-hmm.
You're walking beside each other for the most part. Every once in a while, one of you is walking a little faster, and they might have to reach back and kind of grab your hand, bring you back to beside them. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's walking a little too far ahead, you might have to reach forward and pat them on the butt or grab their hand and bring them back and say, "Hey, I'm not there yet."
Yeah.
And you got to sort of find that cadence with each other.
Yeah, I know.
That's it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that's not too deep. That's not too deep. I thought it was a little more deep than that, and that's perfect.
No, it's not.
That's
crazy
perfect.
Deep, yeah.
That's perfect. I've always found these labels and terms a little wonky or dated, even. You know what I mean?
For sure. Also, partner, and it is 2021. Partner remains ambiguous. You know.
It's weird.
If I'm talking to somebody and I mention my partner, like, I guess for all they would know, my partner could be a guy or a girl.
Yeah.
If I'm just saying partner, I'm not saying a first name that is gender-based or whatever.
Yeah.
If I'm not saying Nicole, then I'm saying partner. My partner could be fucking Joe. For all I know. You know what I mean?
So what'd she call you?
A partner, always.
Yeah.
Partner. Honestly, I think I picked that up from her.
From her, yeah.
Yeah. Because I would call her my girlfriend for sure. Because I don't know, I don't think too much about that stuff. I'm not I don't overthink that stuff. She's great. I'm with her. That's my girl.
Yeah.
But because she sticks to partner, I think I kind of ended up adopting that.
Yeah.
I find it to be more, and this is a terrible term, but I find it to be more professional almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
There's something. It's very
It's more adult.
It is.
It's mature. It's a mature way. Yeah, absolutely. And I get it. I just never, because you've called it that since you've talked about, because we've had conversations over the last couple of years. I'm always wondering, why is he called that? I'm like, see what I mean? How my brain kind of works.
Of course.
I'm always dissecting constantly. Our executive producer, Chris, it's like, same thing when we have conversations. We're always deducing and reasoning things out. Mm-hmm. And that's a byproduct of my dad, who was like my ultimate role model. It's just like he's always, it's been a thing that he's always instilled in me, almost by osmosis. Mm-hmm. It was never something that he knocked over the head.
Yeah.
But when I was young and I saw my dad with his friends, they'd be usually talking. My dad's not a big drinker, but he smokes. They'd smoke and they'd sit there and they'd talk for hours about everything. Everything, like whatever your mind could. And that's so, I find the most of my knowledge or curiosity stems from having great conversations. I felt in actual academic schooling, I found it very easy. And not easy to be, like my grades were mediocre, just boring.
Yeah.
Because it's so trivial, essays and
I can't stand that.
all these things. Like, math was something that made sense to me. It's because these numbers are placed here to get to arrive at this answer or arrive at X. You know what I mean? That was more finite. But for me, you'd ask me to write an essay and then you grade me on your perception of
subjectivity.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not. It's all subjectivity, right?
Yeah.
So I was never good at learning that way. When I went to film school, now it's 13 people that are different, varying professional careers and where they are in life, and I found that constantly I was questioning different things. I was learning different things.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that experience of just like meeting people?
Dude, I've learned way more from everybody I've met in the last 12 hours of my demented, or 12 years of my demented little life. I learned way more meeting people than I did at the most, quote unquote, prestigious school in North America.
Yeah.
U of T's got a big stick up its ass. You know what I mean? like academia is, and some people really, really benefit from it. I don't think that I benefit from it. I benefited from it. I think I found a way to hack it almost, in that, like, I was ghostwriting essays for people.
Yeah.
And like just stuff like that. Like it's very, if you can figure it out, you can figure out how to regurgitate and give them exactly what they need to get the grade you need.
Yeah.
Are you learning anything, or are you? Because I also didn't really participate in the camaraderie of my program. Like my program was very tight knit. You know, it started as 250 people. After first year, dropped down to like 180. The kids that just couldn't cut it. They also had to see dead bodies for the first time. About 75 of those people were just like either fainting or realized that maybe, you know, being a doctor or going to medicine wasn't for them.
Yeah.
After walking in and seeing cadavers. But yeah, I don't know. I gained way more from reading books and talking to people than I ever did from, you know, university.
Yeah.
But like your experiences, in my opinion, are far more important than your education. I'm not saying don't go to school.
Yeah.
What I am saying is don't go to university, go into a trade.
It's you. No one tells you that.
My brother went to college. Okay, so growing up, yeah, he's a mechanic.
Yeah.
He's an automotive technician.
Yeah.
That's the term for it now. Growing up, man, I was reading books, and he was playing with tape and string, and I was viewed as the more intelligent one.
Yeah.
So I was reading books and this and that. That kid, I'll still call him a kid, he's my kid brother.
Yeah.
He has more money in the bank than I'll ever have. He's done his apprenticeship, he's a successful job. He is, you know, looking to leverage that for even better jobs at different dealerships and whatever it may be. I look up to my brother with a respect level that I cannot even begin to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, I think of him as way, way more intelligent than I am. I went, you know, the book route, went to university for this nice, like, whimsical thing. Not whimsical, I mean, health science is pretty dead on, but
yeah.
A lot of people will go to, and not to shit on anything, but a lot of people go to university for philosophy or whatever, like something that's not very tangible and doesn't necessarily have a direct end goal.
Yeah.
You know? And there's nothing wrong with that, but going into the trades, man, it's different.
Yeah.
Like, very direct. And if you're a smart dude, like, you're a smart dude, I'm a smart dude, we should have just gone to college and gone into either plumbing or, like, you know, to be an electrician or something like that.
Yeah.
We should have. Would we be happy?
It's not.
Probably not.
It's not as sexy as
being
Hank Moody, right?
Of course not.
And that's it's one of those things we've never had experience. We talked about online dating previously to the previous guest that was on here, and how he quit online dating. But that was never an appeal to me. It might be the era I grew up in, or it might just be like, I'm very functional with words. I know how to convey messages through speech.
For sure.
You know,
I'd much rather meet somebody on the street.
Yes, and this is what I mean. The synergy there. You and I are the same mind when it comes to a lot of these things.
I don't need like strategically picked pictures.
Yes,
I'm good looking, and I will charm the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I've seen it in action.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I love all things organic, and don't get me wrong, like, when I was single, I was of course on dating apps and Tinder and all that. Used them for a little bit with like terrifying success. Yeah. And just stopped because it was just not really my jam, and I'd much rather go sit at a bar alone.
Yes.
I don't need to go with a buddy. Or if I'm going with a buddy, that's great.
Yeah.
Then that's real dangerous.
Yeah. I'm gonna start
paprika and pepper there.
Oh shit. People are knowing me by so many different names.
Yeah.
Different groups of friends I'm known as different things. But I'm gonna start a segment, and you're gonna be the first guest I'm gonna start it with today. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna be, if you could, what piece of advice would you give men? You don't have to think about it. I'm going to give you time to think about it now. I'm going to give you an example by telling you what I'm going to use the example I used today. The biggest thing I've learned in my life, the Haggakura is like my reference book. Mm-hmm. Some people turn to the Bible or the Quran or whatever the case is. Haggakura seems very tangible to me because samurai, as a people, they're very particular and measured in what they try to accomplish.
Right.
They go in full force. Everything is done. If it's gardening, they do it to the best of their ability. If it's sword fighting, they do it to the best of their ability. Philosophy, any one of these things, you know, like they have their roles within their class system. It's a very old, traditional way of thinking. But my piece of advice for men in going forward, and I'll have one every week. So
you're gonna run out at some point.
I'll never run out.
Good.
My thing is to be better than the person you were the day before. If you even change one thing from the day previous, you should look at that day as a success. Constantly, my girlfriend, she writes a list out. She has an agenda, which is great. I love the way she plans.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I used to not
She's a Capricorn?
No, well, I'm not really good with
Because I'm with one of those.
She's April. What's April?
I don't fucking know.
I don't know either. I'm very bad at this. I just know I'm a fish.
My brother's
I'm a dolphin.
Yeah. Gemini, man. A bipolar Gemini. There's 4 of me.
Oh, God. Yeah, man. The aspect of taking stock of, I keep saying this damn word today, but actually looking at yourself and seeing where you were previously. And we talked about measuring yourself against yourself 5 years ago. Yeah. But constantly I'm looking at what I did previously and things I could tweak it. And by doing that, it's almost like you've now rearranged the matrix and you're able to now control everything like Neo. Because you're now seeing things that my dad would always often say, there is no wisdom without knowledge. And I never really understood that, but it was the whole concept of you know something doesn't mean you have the wisdom to actually do it. You know what I mean? You just know. And without the two working part and parsley, you'll never get anything done. So that's my piece of information for men going forward. It's like, try to be better than the person you were the day before. Now you're in the spot.
I'm gonna piggyback on that. I got three things now.
Okay.
The first thing, the greatest thing you can ever know is that you know nothing.
Yes. Great one.
As soon as you get that in your head, I think it was Confucius. Who knows?
It
wasn't me.
I wasn't there.
Second thing, learn from your dad. Be better than your dad. Always strive to be better than your dad.
Agreed.
Whether your dad was shit, because a lot of people have shit dads. I had a very good dad. My dad's also made a lot of mistakes. You know, he was. He's not that. Great guy. Made some mistakes. Still one of the greatest guys I know. Still one of my idols. I strive all the time to be better than my dad as a man. And the third thing is, while trying to be a better man, don't worry about what other men are thinking about you or judging you on. Don't worry about what other people think. The sooner you don't care about other people's opinions, the better off you'll be. And I use men as the example here because I don't want to say like don't worry about what women think, but like on your path of making sure that you are the best that you can be, don't get caught up in what other people are thinking. As long as you are being true to what you think is best, as long as it is true, you're good. Just keep doing that. Because don't get shrouded in jealousy and all that with other people. Just do you. Yeah.
Well, before we go, man, is there anything you want to plug? Or anything you want to say to the people? Other than those three very,
I will plug because I do need to get it out. I have been finished my manuscript, my book, for months now. I need to get it out. My cover is being designed as we speak. It's going to be called Purple. It is my poetry book. I promise I will have it out before Christmas. Purple by Jordan Sterling.
Awesome. So that's it, man. This is my guest, my good brother, Jordan Sterling. You can catch him give your website.
jordansterling.ca. That's my main website. And then on Instagram, my personal, jorgore444. And my poetry Instagram, Huckleberrymumble.
I like that. Anyways, thank you. Thanks for coming in, brother.
Thank you so much.
I love you, man.
Love you too.
All right. Peace. See you guys next week.